Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to a big edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. We are back just a few hours, it seems like, after talking about Shea Dixon and Matthew Bruni joining myself, Billy Embody, and Peter Rauterkiss at the Bengal Tiger and on 3. But we're back because LSU landed a massive in-state commitment Thursday evening. 5-star offensive tackle Zalance Heard out of Monroe Neville committed to the Tigers over Florida, Florida State, Houston, and Nebraska. On 3 ranks him as the number 13th overall prospect in the country, number 3 offensive tackle nationally, and number 2 overall prospect in the state of Louisiana. And he's a top 50 overall prospect according to the On 3 consensus, which, for those of you who are new here, takes all 4 recruiting services and divides them up equally in terms of the rankings to come up with the best overall consensus among the recruiting services. So an elite prospect here, 6'6.5", 305 pounds. I saw a lot of Zalance Heard in the offseason between spring, fall, or LSU's elite camp, and also, just watching him work out just overall. So I think this is a massive land for LSU. This is somebody that could hold down that right side of that offensive line for years while Will Campbell holds down the left side, and eventually he could move over to the left. Shea, this commitment, brings Brad Davis's class to truly one of the best in the country entering the fall. This is a massive land for many, many reasons for the Tigers.
Yeah, well, Zalance stole my thunder. Today was my commitment day and Matthew Bruni's. But yes, happy to be here. Happy to be on the Bengal Tiger with you, Billy and Peter, and y'all done a great job, obviously, over the past 6-7 months, getting everything rolling. And Matthew, I know I couldn't be more excited, Matthew as well, to be joining the team. And for those wondering, we will have, Billy and I, one of these podcasts. We'll have a weekly recruiting pod, but we'll also have kind of an instant reaction. That's what this is, about 10 minutes or so after every LSU commitment, just giving you some quick thoughts about how it happened, what it means for the rankings, what it means for the class, all of that. So consider this your kind of Cliff Notes version when a commitment comes in. And obviously you can get all the coverage on the Bengal Tiger with video breakdowns and interviews with different commits whenever they happen, and everything that comes with, kind of what you expect when LSU gets a commitment, and the coverage you've grown used to with Billy and I over the years when we've worked together. And right now, quick promo, $1 for a whole year to be part of the On3 network, be part of the Bengal Tiger. Just head to the site, sign up again, thebengaltiger.com, on3.com, and then go to the LSU fan page. That's where we're at. But we'll be running this promo for a little bit. $1 gets you access, to everything for a whole year. No reason not to do it. But Billy, yes, I wasn't the only commitment today. Zalance as well. And when you talk about what Brad Davis has done, now he's gotten these 2 guys in state, Zalance Heard and Tyree Adams. And he's also gotten a guy in Paul Mabenga, former soccer player turned offensive lineman out of Georgia. On 3's really high on his future upside. We're going to see him as a senior and see if his stock doesn't continue to rise. And then there's buzz out there that, there's guys like DJ Chester on the offensive line and others that they're recruiting and certainly could be in the mix for here down the stretch. But let me pause and refresh what you said a second ago and add one thing to it. If you're watching us on YouTube, we also do all this on the Bengal Tiger YouTube page. If you're not subscribed, do so, and it'll be well worth the time. I'm not looking right at the screen. I'm looking down at my computer, so I'm looking at the rankings. On3 has Zalance ranked as the number 3 offensive tackle in America. That's the 3rd best offensive tackle that Brian Kelly and his staff could go get. They got, and the number 13 overall player. This is a kid knocking on the door of being a top 10 player in the country, regardless of position. Doesn't matter. Top 10 player. That's rare air to be a part of. And Billy, you don't have to scroll down. If you're on3 and you're looking at the offensive tackle rankings or the commitment list, whatever it might be, and it orders it out in terms of here's your very best guy, and here, you scroll down the list in terms of the rankings. Tyree Adams out of St. Aug, and when is it never a bad time to go get players out of St. Aug and Neville, 2 of the best programs in Louisiana? Tyree Adams is ranked by On3 as the number 10 offensive tackle in the country. So Brad Davis, Brian Kelly, this staff, however you want to put it, not only do they have a really nice O-line class brewing, but two of the pieces are offensive tackles, and they're top 10 offensive tackles nationally. That's the kind of recruiting Notre Dame was doing. LSU wasn't doing that type of recruiting every year on the O-line. If this becomes, granted, these two guys are in Louisiana, but you locked them up, you got them to stay home. If this becomes how they can recruit on the O-line, that's going to go from a question mark with the team, which sometimes it's been, to every year being able to say, I know one place I don't have to worry about, it's the O-line, because they recruit well and they develop well. I think those two guys, Heard, obviously it's his big day, but toss in Tyree Adams, those two guys help really follow up Will Campbell. And again, for those that don't know, Will Campbell's about to be LSU starting left tackle as a true freshman, starting left tackle in the SEC. And not because they don't have anybody else, because he was a former 5-star and he earned it. He was Neville's left tackle and Heard was their right tackle. They mauled everybody. He goes to college at LSU. Heard moves to left tackle. And as Billy said, Heard commits, and now he'll play offensive tackle at LSU one day. But I just think this combo, Billy, of Adams and Heard is special. I mean, Will Campbell is the real deal. Now you bring in two more top 10 offensive tackles. This isn't a knock on O or Les or anyone. They just didn't do that a ton. They may have gotten one great guy, but not often were you getting in back-to-back years three of the top 10 offensive tackles. That's exactly the type of O-line start they needed to kind of build the foundation moving forward.
Not to mention Miles Frazier's still young, and Emory Jones in that 2022 class. And, Brett Bordelon and Bo Bordelon
not Miles Frazier, Fitzgerald West.
No, Miles Frazier, the transfer, is still young. He's going to be around for a minute too. So like the core of this offensive line for years to come is just seems in the last 18 months or so is just now night and day with the guys they've landed, since Brad Davis got here. So offensive line is trending up. This is the second 5-star for LSU, according to On3 in the class of 2023. Shelton Sampson is also a 5-star on our rankings, sitting there locked in as a 5-star and one of the best receivers in the country out of Louisiana. And look, there's still other prospects that they're in on that, could end up being 5-stars too. They've got a couple commits, I would say, that, are right in the mix to be 5-stars. Josh Mickens, Deron Reed, Deshaun Womack. It wouldn't shock me if Jaylen Brown even went up. He's off to a really good start for his senior season. This is a massive land. I mean, when you get opportunities, and Charles talked about this a lot. Charles Powers, our director of scouting at On3, and he's been as high on Zalance Heard as anyone from the get-go. From the first game that he watched, it was Neville, St. Thomas more that he was watching. He was watching Will Campbell, Walker Howard. Those guys do battle, but Zalance Heard caught his eye. And from there, On3 just flew him right up into the top 20 of the rankings. And it's looked pretty good so far. His length is incredible. 36-inch arms. That's just insane. And he carries his weight really well. He's nasty on the field. Really, really kind of funny guy too. Just when you get him on the phone or get him talking, he just has a good personality to him. But when he's on the field, he's a different cat out there. And so this is a massive land for LSU. Still needs to develop some lower body strength. Still needs to get his technique right. This is only his second year playing offensive line, but the upside, the talent, the edge. I mean, this is all you want when you draw up an offensive tackle, and LSU keeps one in Louisiana at home. So this is a massive pickup for LSU.
Yeah, Billy, that's, again, another Louisiana domino to drop. That's exactly what they wanted. Fans want to see LSU put the fence around the state, because all of the great LSU teams have had largely made up of Louisiana guys at really key positions. So this is a big pickup there. For those that are wondering, this puts on the On3 rankings, LSU entered the day a top 5 class. They obviously remain a top 5 class, and they put themselves up there. It's Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, and then LSU. So that 5-man group will see kind of jockey for some position moving forward. In fact, though, on On3, LSU, compared to those 5 teams, is the first one to land 2 5-stars in the class, 2 5-stars on the On3 rankings. In terms of the On3 consensus, they were entering the day at 7. Now we've seen them creep back up, knocking on the door of top 5 there as well. So sort of all the rankings are kind of fleshed out and matching each other and describing LSU as a top 5 class. 22 commits, Billy. So I know you can sign as many as you want these days, and they need to rebuild a roster. We don't expect them to sign 22 more, high school kids. They'll sign 4, 5, 6 more. But it seems like, as we wrap up here, the heavy lifting, getting a guy like Heard in the boat and kind of putting a period on a 2-month stretch that saw you land whatever 22 minus 5 is, 17 commitments in the span of like 60 days. And a lot of these kids, they were ready to do it. It's before their senior year, before their senior football season. They just want to get it out of the way. They've made their decision. So a lot of the heavy lifting is done, and we'll see where they go from here. We'll talk about it more on the recruiting podcast. But again, and we talked about this on the team podcast earlier today, if you haven't listened to that, what they've done to be able to set themselves up with a top 5 class, a ton of talent, and all of a sudden it looks like they're locked to finish in the top 10, and we'll see kind of who they land down the stretch if they stay top 5 or even climb a little bit higher, is impressive for a completely new staff that's taken over a program that scholarship-wise kind of was ravaged, but also just gone on the field, back-to-back 500 seasons. To enter this first year and have a top 5 class is really impressive. And it's not like they have a top 5 class and everyone out there has 7 commits or whatever. Everyone's classes are about filled out minus 5, 6, 7, 8 spots if you're talking about the best teams out there. So that means LSU's very much kind of positioned themselves to, no matter what, get a top 10 class in Brian Kelly's first year.
We covered it well, about 10 minutes plus, with some of the little intros that we had to do around what this instant reaction is going to be. But look, guys, we're excited to be here once again. Again, $1 for a year. Subscribe to the Bengal Tiger. Zalance Heard's commitments got Shea all shook up over there, coughing up a storm. I know
I was muted though.
Yes, there's a big party going on with Zalance Heard jumping on board with this LSU staff. I could tell you guys that this is a huge land for LSU. We appreciate you guys listening to this edition of the podcast, the first one of these that we're going to do together, but not the last. There's going to be plenty more to cover on the commitment front for the Tigers, so stay tuned for that. For Shea Dixon, I'm Billy Embody. Please give us a follow wherever you catch your podcast at. Subscribe to Bengal Tiger YouTube, as well as subscribe to thebengaltiger.com for $1 for a full year. We're part of the On3 network. It's a great time to jump on board. So hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the message boards. Thanks for listening to this edition, and have a great weekend watching LSU Florida State.